Right, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us tonight are Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and The Independent's chief football writer, Miguel Delaney. Welcome along to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages first of all. And the Times, well, have a look at this. The FA wants Gareth Southgate to stay regardless of what happens on Sunday. And The Guardian, again dominated by this final on Sunday at Euro 2024. England's manager Gareth Southgate effectively saying they have to be perfect to beat Spain. In the Metro, is it one last dance for Gareth Southgate? Well, we shall see. That's the headline on the Metro ahead of that final. And the front page of the Telegraph, you can see England players there relaxing ahead of this game. And they reiterate England wanting Southgate to stay on beyond Euro 2024. On the back page of the Mail, a fantastic picture of Jude Bellingham. Not really feeling too worried, is he? Feeling the pressure, Jude? Something tells me not. Sidebar in the Sun there is to do with Joshua Zirkzee's impending £34 million move from Bologna to Manchester United, and of course dominated once more with England. And the Star, up or sup for the Cup. This is to do with Declan Rice having a beer if England win on Sunday. And the Eye, well, the FA wants Southgate to stay, and Declan Rice is saying we want to win the Euros for Gareth Southgate. And finally, the Express, again dominated by this final, and Declan Rice quotes, "We'll fight like demons." He's out to erase the haunting memory of the Italian defeat in 2021. OK, gentlemen, welcome along. Only one place to start, and that is with the Times, with the FA wanting Gareth Southgate to stay on as England manager, even if they don't win the Euros on Sunday. Jonathan, let me start with you first of all. Is that a surprise? And do you think he should stay on?
I'm not that surprised, although I am kind of like, my heart sinks a little. Two words, Joachim Löw at Germany, who, there is a temptation, I think, because Southgate is a known. They like him, they know how to work with him. They know how he works. There is a solid, functional working relationship there. And obviously there has been enough success to justify the relationship continuing. I guess the other side of it is, when you get into that sort of situation, you can't really envisage anyone else doing the job. And so it just kind of becomes the default. Well, he's got the job. He does it okay. Let's not work out whether someone could do this better or whether the thing is going stale and, it needs a refreshing. Let's just gather Southgate in for another couple of years and just try and plow on as we want. And that is not how international football works. It's not how the sport works. Trends move on and the game changes and the terrain shifts under your feet. And I think we've seen in the last couple of years that, events and circumstances have kind of moved on from Southgate. He has done, I think, a really, really good job in terms of, the ambassadorial side, in terms of giving meaning to this England team. And they have performed very well under him. But I just wonder if the FA are slightly guilty of trying to over milk this cow. Whether I think everything points to a clean break at the end of 2024. Whether they win or lose, and if they keep him on, it does just seem like one cycle too far.
Miguel, Jonathan says it's pointing towards a clean break, but during these Euros, at times, Gareth Southgate has cut a lonely figure. He's talked about difficult circumstances throughout this tournament. Do you think he himself would want to continue, given what's happened?
Had you asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have said he was definitely going to go. But I suppose in a development that's a bit of an echo of actually what happened in the 2022 World Cup, where he did change his mind after reflecting on the tournament itself, it feels like similar will be happening now. And like a lot of the papers there obviously have Southgate's his quotes to the daily newspapers after the game last night. And in that, I was in the huddle afterwards. And there was just maybe the first sign he might consider the future, because he started to talk about how young the squad is, where previously he'd only spoken about that in terms of Euro 2024, and he was only focusing on this. But he started to talk about what it might mean for the future, and of course, the World Cup in the USA in 2 years' time. So, and of course, then, as you say, so relevant to this is the reaction from the fans. And he did make a point of saying how everyone is united behind the team again. It's obviously very important to him. He did take the debate, and well, let's be fair, it went beyond debate. He got openly criticised that beer glasses or beer cups thrown at him at a game. It did personally affect him. But just like with 22 World Cup, now that he feels that, I suppose, the country is rallying around the team again, I think it at least play in his mind. My gut is still that he'll probably go, but I'm not sure I'd say that with great conviction now. As for the FA's side, I think this was always likely. I think it's obviously a great story from the guys, but it's also in some ways expected, because I think it would have taken basically a really bad campaign that I suppose it did come quite close to being, but England got through that. But it would have taken something that to really collapse for the FA to decide to move Southgate on. If there was any sense of a good tournament, I think they, as Jonathan said there, they were going to attempt to stick with the status quo. It's a lot easier decision. And as Jonathan says as well, it's at the point now where it is kind of difficult to imagine anyone else as England manager.
Jonathan, just picking up on that, look, the Times are reporting, look, whatever happens, they want him to stay on. In the Telegraph, one of the quotes from Gareth Southgate is, "All I need now is a winner's medal." Do you think the decision, from Southgate's perspective, may be swayed about what happens on Sunday, even though the FA would want him to stay regardless of that result?
Yeah, I mean, contrary to a lot of the talk in the run-up to the tournament, that, you know, a bad tournament or you know, another kind of just falling short would mean that Southgate would go. I've always thought that he would be much more likely to step away if he actually got that winner's medal, if he actually won a tournament. It would almost sort of complete the narrative. There's, you know, once your team is, you know, has won a major trophy, there is really nowhere else you can take it. And 8 years, it's 8 years, isn't it? It's a long time. It's a long time in that job, even though in terms of tournament matches, it's barely sort of, what is it, 20, I think Spain is 26th game, which is about 2/3 of a Premier League season, but it feels like an epoch. And I think if he were to beat Spain on Sunday, if England were to do it, I think there would be, it would feel like the level had been completed, like a computer game had been completed at the highest level, and there would be a narrative satisfaction to that, and that would be the perfect time for him to step away. You know, why try and, you know, go to the World Cup where you can basically only win it or fail? And of course, there are the fans who, you know, it'll only take another couple of sort of 0-0s in a friendly for the fans to start turning on again, and then, you know, you're in that cycle of abuse and you know, torture and you know, really bad football.
Just very quickly on this, in a word, Jonathan, will Southgate still be England manager after the Euros?
Oh my God, yes, probably.
Yes, Miguel?
Yes.
Wow. OK. Look, I'm sure this debate will continue, but there is, of course, a match to look ahead to. If we look at The Guardian, Gareth Southgate has actually said that England will have to be perfect if they are to beat Spain. Miguel, just on this game, what do you think England will have to do to end what's been described now as 58 years of hurt? It keeps going up, doesn't it?
Well, I think Southgate's actually summed it up there. I think they do need to be perfect. This is, I mean, it's not just a game against an elite side. as you know, as has been one of the debates about the Southgate era, that they like this trend to lose against that first side they play, especially against a side with a really convincing midfield in a way. It's also just that it's been such a step up in the games they have played, and Spain have been, I think, by some distance, the team of the tournament. He talks about perfect there. Well, that's summed up by one stat which shows, I suppose, how close to perfect Spain have been, because it was the first team to ever go to an expanded European Championships, having won all their matches. The only team that's come close is France 1984, who won 4-4 on the way to the final there, but that was a smaller tournament. And no one has done it. No one has won 6 out of 6 in Euros. Obviously, this is now 7. And they haven't just won those games. They've beaten, as the Spanish themselves are putting it, the giants of European football in Italy, Croatia, Germany, and France, with England now to come. And they're beyond just names, because it's been the hosts, the defending champions, the 2018 World Cup finalists, the 2018 World Cup winners and next finalists, and now, of course, England, the next team they face, the Euro 2020 finalists. And again, they haven't just won those games, at least 2 of them, you might even say more, they've won them convincingly. Added to that, they've got a midfield led by Rodri, who feels like in the last year with City, he's gone up to a totally different level as a player. We're talking about the best midfielder in the world now. I think there is a danger that the way England use the ball, the way Spain use the ball, can potentially exhaust England. But the flip side to that, and I think this is where the game gets really interesting, is for all that Spain usually exhausts these teams, one of the great virtues of England's campaign has been how they just keep persevering. They go right to the end. We've seen that in a last-minute equaliser to keep them in it, a last-minute winner to actually put them into the final. Then, of course, the nature of the penalties. And that doesn't just come from the will and the belief that develops with those sort of results. It's also because they've got a much greater depth than Spain. And the Spanish would accept that themselves. Southgate this is the real importance of the quality of the team, the individual quality, the players that Southgate can bring on to change things. And that could be crucial, even if, say, for 70 to 80 minutes, Spain dominate England with possession.
Jonathan, Miguel mentions England's perseverance there. The back page of the Daily Express has Declan Rice saying, "We'll fight like demons." Is that going to be enough?
I hope so. I just can't see England getting enough of the ball to create the volume of chances that they're going to need. I've been so impressed with the way, everyone talks about the possession football, everyone talks about the wingers, everyone talks about Williams and Lamine Yamal and how efficient they've been. I've been so impressed with the way that they've soaked up really sustained spells of pressure against, like Miguel says, elite opposition, against Italy, against Croatia, against Germany, against France. Germany actually, although they broke away and scored that winner in injury time, in extra time, they were actually under the cosh for quite a lot of extra time. France, they pushed really hard in the second half, and they withstood with what was against France certainly a makeshift defence in Nacho and Jesus Navas. So it's about whether England can get enough of the ball to create the volume of chances that they're going to need. And if it goes to penalties, or if they get a dodgy VAR decision like they did in the semi-final, then who knows what can happen. But I think if they played this game 100 times, I think England would they'd be lucky to win sort of 20 or 30 in my estimation.
I just want to go to your piece, actually, Jonathan, from The Guardian, where you're talking about the changing role of the number 9 in the Euros, pegging it on what's happened with Harry Kane, with England in particular. What have you noticed so far in these championships?
Yeah, it's an observation, really. The big strikers, what you'd call the big name strikers that came into this tournament, have all kind of universally done pretty badly. You think of Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal, and Kylian Mbappe at France, Robert Lewandowski, Lukaku as well with Belgium. And the observation that I think that I've made is that it's the teams that have kind of multiple attacking threats that aren't relying on a kind of a single dominant source of goals that have done best at this tournament. And there are number 9s that have thrived, guys like Füllkrug for Germany and Bolo for Switzerland, Wout Weghorst, but they've done so in slightly more limited roles, whether it's limited by minutes in terms of coming off the bench and having an impact off the bench, or whether it's like guys like Morata or Embolo having a slightly more sort of selfless, sacrificial role, creating space for others to play. And Kane is an interesting case, because obviously he scored 3 goals. He's at the top of the scoring charts, jointly with 5 other players. But you'd struggle to say that he's actually made England play better. And ironically, as England have gone through the tournament, he's almost become kind of more peripheral to the way England want to attack, and certainly the way that England want to try and control games. And this is the big issue going into the Spain game. We all think of Harry Kane as this, number 9, number 10, this kind of dominant alpha male, this dominant striker. But ironically, I think the way that the tournament is going, the more peripheral and the more sort of focused and limited a role he plays, whether it's off the bench or whether it's, stretching play and being more selfless, that is going to give England the best chance of controlling the game and bringing their other attacking threats into play.
Yeah, interesting stuff that, Jonathan. Miguel, what's your take on that? And in particular, Harry Kane. I'm not going to ask, is he going to get dropped? Because we know that realistically is not going to happen. But not only for the final, but looking beyond Euro 2024, what kind of role do you think Harry Kane can play for England and continue to play? Is it going to be as the first choice striker, or maybe, as Jonathan's alluding to there, maybe playing a more peripheral role and maybe being an impact substitute for England?
I wouldn't quite say. I think this has come in a very specific context for Kane, where, one of the most, I suppose, significant moments of the club season, certainly for Bayern Munich, was Kane coming off against Real Madrid with what we now know was a back injury. He was feeling the pain there. That has persisted through this tournament. Although Kane told the media the other day, he told us that he's feeling sharper and feeling better. At least in terms of appearance, his performances feel like they run contrary to that. Southgate has obviously been willing to take him off. And as you say, Dharmesh, for all this debate about whether Southgate should drop him, that's just not going to happen, is it? He will use him. But I suppose what's interesting there is Southgate is much more willing to take him off than he might have been in previous tournaments. Kane is still in the prime of his career. I would say he's got at least 4 or 5 years left as a top striker. I think he will hold that role going forward. I suppose, some as regards what that role is, some of it does depend on what we've already been discussing on the show, which is Southgate's future. If Southgate persists, it's difficult to see how it changes. If someone like Eddie Howe or any other, Graham Potter, comes in, then it might be a different role. I think they probably maybe would be seen as kind of more fluid tactical coaches in that way, especially as regards how number 9s are used. But they're questions for the future. For now, I think we can almost see how this game is going to go, which is Kane starting and maybe taking off for the pace of Watkins or Toney after an hour or after 70 minutes.
Gentlemen, there are other stories around in the newspapers aside of the Euros. And Miguel, I want to have a look at the piece that you've written in The Independent about Jurgen Klopp. And Jurgen Klopp responds to surprise approach by USA men's national team. Just tell us what that response was, first of all, and also, is international football the next natural step for Jurgen Klopp for you?
Well, yeah, the relevant fact is that Klopp is going to be staying out of work because he has rejected overtures from the USA national team and men's national team. I suppose it was quite a adventurous move from the States. That is reflective of the fact that they're about to host a World Cup in 2 years' time. And that's why I think they would see, and also a lot of managers would see, this is a really attractive role, because there's obviously a wider context here than just the World Cup. Essentially, the entirety of the club game is aiming for the American market as the next place that can see kind of commercial takeoff football. And it is obviously a developing market, we usually growing popularity for the game. And he actually, even on social media, I have to say today, once we put up the story, initially it was just that the USA had approached him. It really took off. There is this mass interest now. There's talk in America how it's already overtaken ice hockey. But yeah, he has said no for the moment. He does want to take a proper rest. But given the way he's feeling after Liverpool, and knowing the sort of figure he is, and someone who just lives a game, you would think if he doesn't want to immerse himself in the sort of job like Liverpool again, then maybe an international team job is the obvious next step. And who knows with the World Cup as well. For America, it's still 2 years away. But you would think if he is going to take one, it would be Germany.
Let's just look at the Sun now. And it's a transfer story that I want to ask you about, Jonathan. And it is quite a significant one because It's Ineos making a statement now for Manchester United, and Joshua Zirkzee on the verge of joining from Bologna. What do you make of the transfer, first of all, and what it signifies as far as Ineos and Manchester United and a new-look Manchester United are concerned?
Yeah, it sounds like it's done. I mean, the interesting thing is, there's Zirkzee's obviously had a great season at Bologna. He's not the same kind of forward as Rasmus Højlund. He describes himself as a 9.5. He's under Thiago Motta at Bologna last season. He's kind of evolved into slightly more of a deep lying forward, who links play as well. The question is whether he is different enough from Højlund for them to both be accommodated in the same team without one of them making major accommodations, or whether it is a straight swap, or whether one of them is essentially going to be an understudy to the other. That's the main question. And I think the interesting thing about this transfer is, and I think it's a really good price. It's a really good price for a young player. I think he's 22. With a great season in Serie A under his belt. The question is whether that partnership, or whether he's going to get the time at a club like Manchester United to bed in, to settle into, to find his role, because it's not immediately obvious where he fits into a side if they are with Højlund there already.
Jonathan, Miguel, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for your time.